everyone, welcome back. In today's session, we'll be discussing the characters and the summary of Hamlet. And the first character is, without doubt, Hamlet himself. Hamlet is the Prince of Denmark. He is a son to the late King Hamlet and nephew to the present King Claudius. So Hamlet, he is the Prince of Denmark, and he is the son of the late King Hamlet and the present Queen Gertrude, and nephew to the present King Claudius. The next character is Claudius. Claudius is the present King of Denmark. He is elected to the throne after the death of his brother, King Hamlet. Claudius has married Gertrude, his brother's widow. So Claudius assumes the throne after the death of King Hamlet, and he marries his sister-in-law. He marries King Hamlet's wife, Gertrude. The next character is Gertrude. Gertrude is a queen of Denmark, King Hamlet's widow, and is now married to Claudius and is mother to Hamlet. The next one is the ghost. The ghost appears in the image of Hamlet's father, the late King Hamlet. We have discussed in the introductory section that Shakespeare interwoves supernatural elements to natural, and the appearance of ghost is an example of that. So the ghost appears in the image of Hamlet's father, the King Hamlet, the late King Hamlet. The next character is Polonius. Polonius is Claudius's chief counselor. He is the Lord Chamberlain and the father of Ophelia and Laertes. And obviously Laertes is the son of Polonius, and he has just returned to Elsinore from Paris. He has just returned to Denmark from Paris. The next character, Ophelia. Ophelia is a daughter of Polonius, and she is Laertes' sister, and Ophelia is Hamlet's love interest. The next character is Horatio. Horatio is a friend of Hamlet from the University of Wittenberg, and he has come to Elsinore. He has come to Denmark to attend King Hamlet's funeral. Horatio is Hamlet's faithful and sincere friend. The next character, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are the childhood friends and schoolmates of Hamlet, and they were summoned to Elsinore by Claudius and Gertrude. The next character is Fortinbras. Fortinbras is the Norwegian crown prince, and he assumes the throne of Denmark in the final scene. So these are the major characters in the play Hamlet. So the plot summary of the play Hamlet can be put in a few lines like this. The King of Denmark is dead and has been succeeded not by his son Hamlet, but by his brother and killer Claudius. So after the death of King Hamlet, it was not his son Hamlet who assumes the throne, but it was his brother and his killer Claudius. And soon after the funeral, Claudius marries his brother's widow, Gertrude. So even without a proper mourning, Gertrude is marrying Claudius just after the funeral. Hamlet, haunted by the spectre of his father and maddened by his inner ghost, seeks to avenge the death of his king. So when Hamlet returns from Wittenberg to Elsinore to attend the funeral of his father, he is being confronted by his father's ghost, who asks him to take revenge on the brutal murder, and he is struck by the horror of that, and he is also maddened by his inner ghost. He is really not sure whether his uncle Claudius is guilty or not. So he is maddened by his inner ghost, as well as he is haunted by the spectre of his father, and he seeks to avenge the death of Claudius. So this is the plot summary of Hamlet. Moving on with the act-wise summary of Hamlet. In Act 1, Hamlet, still upset by his father's death, sees the ghost of his father, who tells him that he was murdered by Claudius. The ghost asks his son to avenge his death. Hamlet pretends to go mad. Polonius, the Lord Chamberlain, forbids his daughter Ophelia to see Hamlet. So in Act 1, Hamlet is seeing the ghost of his father, ghost of the late king, and the late king is asking Hamlet to avenge his death. He was killed by Claudius. He opens up to his son that he was killed by Claudius. At this instance, Hamlet pretends to go mad so that he could have some time to think on what to do. Meanwhile, Polonius, the Lord Chamberlain, forbids his daughter Ophelia to see Hamlet. We know that Ophelia and Hamlet were in love. Polonius finds that out, and he forbids his daughter to see Hamlet. And it becomes the end of Act 1. In Act 2, Ophelia tells Polonius that Hamlet has been lurking about her room and speaking nonsense. She shows Hamlet's love letters to her father. Polonius assumes that Hamlet is madly in love with his daughter and that he has been acting strangely ever since he was forbidden to see his beloved. Polonius informs this to the king, and they stage a scene to find out whether or not Hamlet is sick with love. So in Act 2, Ophelia tells to her father that she has seen Hamlet and he wasn't in his right mind, and Polonius assumes that this is because he is struck with love, he is depressed now, and that is why he is acting quite strange. And he goes straight to Claudius and tells him that Hamlet is sick with love, and so they stage a scene to find out whether or not that is true. In Act 3, spied on by Polonius and Claudius, Ophelia returns Hamlet's love letters and is violently rejected by him. And this will have a terrible effect on her. A group of traveling actors arrives at the court, and Hamlet asks them to perform a play in which a king is murdered by his nephew. He hopes that the story, which is similar to the murder of his father by Claudius, will force Claudius to betray his guilt. Hamlet is right. Claudius is upset by the play. Later, Hamlet is summoned to his mother's room, where he angrily criticizes her for her hasty marriage. He accidentally kills Polonius, who is hiding behind a curtain, believing him to be Claudius. So in Act 3, under the instruction of Polonius and Claudius, Ophelia meets Hamlet and she returns the love letters that were given to her by him, and Hamlet violently rejects it, and this will have a terrible effect on her. She passes to a stage of depression. Later, a group of traveling actors, they comes to the court, and Hamlet asks the group of actors to stage a play similar to that of the death of the late King Hamlet. And all this while, Hamlet was looking for a way to find out whether Claudius was guilty of the murder or not. And he thought this to be the best way to find it out. And then it is revealed that the ghost was right and Hamlet's intuition was right, and that Claudius was guilty of the murder because Claudius is upset by the play. And then Hamlet is summoned to his mother's room. He is summoned to Gertrude's room, and there he loses his temper and he accuses his mother for her hasty marriage. And at that time and at that scene, Hamlet accidentally kills Polonius, thinking that it was Claudius. So that marks the end of Act 3. In Act 4, Claudius sends Hamlet to England, planning to have him murdered. Laertes, Polonius' son, returns to Denmark from France, demanding revenge for his father's death. Ophelia, mad with grief, drowns herself. So, in Act 4, to set things right, Claudius resolves to murder Hamlet, and so he sends him to England, planning to have him murdered. And then Laertes, it is Polonius' son. Polonius was killed in the previous act by Hamlet. He was accidentally killed by Hamlet, and Laertes returns to Denmark from France, and he is demanding revenge for his father's death. And also in this act, Ophelia, who is mad with grief, drowns herself. So, unable to bear the pain of the rejection of Hamlet and also the sad demise of her father, she is committing suicide. So, that is Act 4. In Act 5, Hamlet returns from England, having discovered Claudius' plot to have him killed. He confronts Laertes and Claudius at Ophelia's funeral. Claudius plots with Laertes to kill Hamlet with a poisoned sword in a sword fight. The plot goes wrong and Laertes dies. Gertrude drinks from a poisoned cup intended for Hamlet and dies. Hamlet, wounded by the poisoned sword, kills Claudius before he too dies. Young Fortinbras, Prince of Norway, enters and claims the throne of Denmark for himself. There are multiple murders or multiple deaths going on in Act 5. Hamlet, who went to England, returns from there, having discovered Claudius' plan to murder him. Then he confronts Laertes, Polonius' son, and Claudius at Ophelia's funeral. So he attends Ophelia's funeral and he confronts both Laertes and Claudius. Again, Claudius plots with Laertes to kill Hamlet with a poisoned sword in a sword fight. So Claudius arranges a sword fight and he plans with Laertes to have Hamlet killed in the sword fight. The plot goes wrong and Laertes dies instead. And Gertrude, mother of Hamlet, drinks from a poisoned cup intended for Hamlet. So Claudius arranges a poisoned cup of drink for Hamlet and accidentally Gertrude drinks from it and she dies. Again, Hamlet, wounded by poisoned sword, kills Claudius before he too dies. So Hamlet is dying and before he dies, he stabs Claudius and Claudius also dies. And finally, young Fortinbras, he was a prince of Norway. Fortinbras enters the scene and he claims the throne of Denmark for himself. So that is the end of Act 5 and so the end of the play Hamlet. So let's wind up today's session and as assignment, note down the major characters of the drama. Thank you and have a nice day.